fucking Skype.
Sorry, Graham. I can only apologise.
Seriously, man. I mean, it's tough times not moved on.
You look great anyway, Graham.
Retro. You look fabulous.
Cheers, man.
Look at all the belts. Jeez, that's some setup there.
I haven't got the same kind of professional lighting in the studio that you guys have, but fuck me, you can at least update the app that you're calling on, man. All these fancy mics and lights. All the lights and the fancy mics, and you're still using fucking Skype.
We deserve this. We deserve it all.
We wholeheartedly
Congratulations,
apologize.
by the way. It was amazing. It was everything you said it would be and more. I thought it was brilliant. So congratulations, I guess we have to say straight off the bat. Are you happy with the trilogy strikes again? Was it everything you hoped it would be?
Yeah, it was. It did everything that we said it would do in the tin, you know. When we finished the first one, I said after the first one that the second one would be better because nobody has kind of did 3 shows live back to back before. And when we did the first trilogy in Manchester, it was a case of this is the first time for doing something. We're going to learn from this. And the next one will be a lot more streamlined. And any mistakes we make on this one will be ironed out for the second one. So the second one will be a lot better. And it was from a organizational point of view, structure point of view, layout setup. Everything was just a streamlined, well-oiled machine as Cage Warriors is.
Is it likely? I was listening to Dana White speaking after the UFC event, and he was kind of saying, you know, he was couldn't wait for the end of 2021. 2020. But now he's kind of saying it seems 2021 is going to be a lot of the same early on. I know you've announced the third trilogy event for March. Do you feel like this is going to be carrying on for a long time until we get back to big crowds? Is it hard to fathom when we're going to see, you know, a full arena again, a full stadium for an MMA event again?
Yeah, I don't think you're seeing full stadiums, people sitting every seat next to each other crammed in for some time. So we'll be doing 4 trilogy events next year.
Wow.
And we'll also be doing individual single events in between the trilogies. So we've already started planning. We've got March 18th, 19th, and 20th for the first trilogy. And hopefully April, May, we'll do just a one-nighter, a Saturday nighter. And then we'll come back in June with another trilogy again.
Brilliant. Graham, how much?
Safe to say that... Sorry, go ahead, no.
Sorry, Graham. You know, from a promotional standpoint, and obviously it takes a lot of money to put these things together. How taxing has it been for you guys in terms of financial sense, you know, going forward, you know, learning from what you've had to do this year and going into 2021?
Man, we've been spending bags left, right, and center. There's been bags spent on the hotel, bags spent on transport. There's a bag spent on production. There's bags spent on new canvases. There's fucking bags being spent everywhere. So, and there's no tickets. There's no ticket money coming in. So
exactly.
It's a case of we just got to keep doing what we're doing, and in the long run, we just got to support and believe in ourselves and what we're doing. In the long run, that in some way, shape or form come back to us. The main thing is the fighters are kept busy. The fighters on the Cage Warriors roster anyway, I mean, apart from being restricted a little bit on training on certain weeks and certain areas they've been in, the fact we've had the elite status and the approval from the government and the Cage Warriors name and trilogy series is listed on the government website, that's given the guys kind of permission to train in a sense. So we've been giving them letters of permission to train, saying it's an elite status show, it's a professional organization, they're live on TV, this is their income, they have to train. So apart from a couple of weeks where we've had a few guys who got restricted on training, these guys have been kept busy. And yeah, there's been a pandemic, the world is messed up, but we've kept the train rolling and we've kept these guys progressing in their careers like they're meant to be. So apart from the financial kick in the bollocks, we're doing okay.
Certainly.
I think you're doing far better than okay, to be honest with you. I think you have absolutely killed it. And as always, usually, right, when you guys do one event, there's usually so many talking points that come out of it. But when you do 3 back to back, there's a shitload. So I've tried to go through each card meticulously and try to narrow down the things we want to ask you about, because so much shit happened over the 3 days. It's unbelievable. Let's start with the main event of Cage Warriors 117, Hadley v Shanks. I was blown away by Hadley from his pre-fight interview to his performance. You know, he fought back from adversity after it looked like he was hurt by Shanks early on. And then at the end, he's kind of saying, I think the first thing he said when you put the belt around his waist was, let's get another belt. I mean, this kid seems to be box office straight off the bat for Cage Warriors. What is his next move? Is it likely we see him take on Creasy next, or would you be open to that Cartwright v Hadley fight, the 2 most terrifying guys, I think, on your roster?
They are. And then they look quite similar too, right? You put a rat's tail on that. Twins. Edith was saying that to me. She pointed that out. I don't know what's next for Jake. We've got to have a conversation with him and see what he wants to do. And same goes for Cartwright, you know? I mean, what an explosive fight that would be if either one was willing to either step up or go down. I'm not sure if Jack goes down to 125. I think Jake would be happy to do 135 because I know he's a big weight cutter and he struggles on the scale sometimes. So I think if it were to happen, it would more likely be a 135-pound fight. But yeah, we've got to speak to both guys and see if that's something of interest to the pair of them. You know, there's a fair amount of risk on both sides for that fight, but you know, there's a massive reward as well. So it depends on what their camps and coaches are saying and where they feel they are. So it's not something that we'd say no to. Certainly, it's a crazy fight.
Would you rather keep them apart, Graham? Because obviously, you know, you could see if both of them kept on going the way they're going in their divisions, ultimately the call is going to come from Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard and Dana White.
Mm-hmm.
Is it more beneficial for you as a promotion?
You know, we do big fights. You know, we look to do big fights, and we look to get the fights on that can create the pressure around the fighter to just produce an amazing diamond. You know, we do that. We like to get that in what we do. Pressure creates diamonds, and if there's a pressure fight there on both guys, and one guy's coming out shining, you know, that's a bigger thing than 2 guys coming out being the guy in their division. So if that fight's there, it's possible to do, then it's certainly a talking point with Ian and I on the pros and cons. It's not a pros and cons chat that I'd have publicly. I'd rather have that with Ian in private and see where we think that is. And if both guys wanted it, then we'd see where we're at now.
Yeah, it's I think they're both brilliant. I need to watch them both live when they're on. I think they're both exceptional talents, really do, and that would be huge, of course. But I feel as though if there's one guy, I feel like, and I know, you know, I'm not trying to say you pick favorites or anything, but I can feel like, you know, it would mean a lot to you if Matthias Frederick got a call up. He got a knockout against Jamie Richardson on Friday night at Cage Warriors 118. His story is absolutely exceptional. Can you just tell our audience a little about Matthias and why it would mean a lot to you to get him to UFC, as I perceive it to mean to you?
Matthias is a shining example of someone that's gone through all the crap that anyone could go through, from a bullying point of view, from adversity, from a speech impediment, the confidence. He's just come through it all, and he's come through it all to be a Cage Warriors middleweight world champion, and probably the most feared Cage Warriors middleweight world champion. Nobody wants to fight this guy. He's an absolute powerhouse. You know, Jamie stepped in and I actually thought up until it was lights out, I thought Jamie had the perfect game plan. You know, he was on his toes, he was using his speed and his footwork. And in my head, I had Jamie up until that point ahead on points watching that fight. And you know, just took one punch from Matthias. And I would love to see, absolutely love, out of everyone that we've got signed into the UFC over the past year or so, I would just love to see or read somewhere that Matthias is making his UFC debut. That'd be amazing to see his story move on to that platform.
Definitely.
How much of an obstacle is it when a guy is 37, Graham? Like, I mean, you know, just anyone would think that a guy at 37, you know, it's beyond the years that, say, the UFC would usually be looking for a prospect, because essentially Natoyas, coming from Cage Warriors, is a prospect, is a champion. But you know, is that an obstacle for you, getting a guy that's 37 in there? Is that going to be an issue, do you think?
Yeah, well, you know, age is a big factor, you know, but we're dealing with a 37-year-old powerhouse who's on a serious win streak, knocking people out left, right, and center. I believe he's got a good 4 or 5 years ahead of him. It's down to his manager to open up those conversations with the UFC. I'm sure he has already. But I definitely believe there's an opening there for him. Even if it was Dana White's Contender Series, he'd probably spark everybody up in that. And there's a solid run with Matthias. I mean, there's one run. It's not a case of go in, get 1 or 2, go 1-1, or go 1-2 and get cut and come back and get another few fights and go back again. It's one run. Here's an opportunity. Go for it. You've got one shot at this, and once it's over because of the age thing. I definitely believe he should get a shot. You know, CM Punk got a shot, didn't he?
He did.
Very
he did. I'd love to see him get an opportunity too.
Yeah.
Are you ready for Cage Warriors 119 now? Because this is talking points all over the gaff here, Graham. I'm not going to lie to you. This is up and down. Yeah. The talk from Irish MMA about Joe McColgan is he has only lost to the cream of the crop when it comes to Cage Warriors. He's lost to Joy Herbert, Mason Jones. He had a draw with Mehdi, who looks absolutely unstoppable at the moment. Is it likely that Joe McColgan's next fight could be for the 155-pound title?
He'll be a name in conversation, of course, after the performance he's put in. I like that, and the biggest arguments come with these fights with Ian and I. Ian will say one thing, I'll say another, and believe it or not, a lot of people think Ian is a soft, timid lad, but he's pretty versed in calling me the names he wants to call me when we're behind closed doors if I don't agree with what he thinks, and vice versa. So those conversations get quite heated. Joe is definitely in that conversation. His knockout of Lister was phenomenal, you know, and I said to him afterwards, I spoke to him, I said, your hand speed in that fight was just incredible. You know, his accuracy, and he was a different guy. He was going in, the shots that he would take going in meant absolutely nothing to him, providing he got his off. And that's a different attitude. That's a guy on a mission. You know, some guys go in and they want to let their shots off, and they don't want to take those shots to get theirs off. They did nothing to him. He was just charging forward with speed and accuracy and taking anything that was coming at him to let his go. And that was a different Joe McColgan than what we've seen previously. So he's definitely in the conversation. Yeah.
He looked so calm, I thought, as well. It was a brilliant performance.
Absolutely. So you mentioned him there. The next question is about Ian Garry. Now, I for one, I don't think that Ian's calling for the title, and he absolutely should be calling for the title as a fighter, as a guy hugely confident as he is. And who knows? Like, if he got a title shot, who knows? He could win it. But I wouldn't blame you guys for saying, okay, let's have a maybe a bridging fight to the title here. You know, a Khalid, someone like this who is very experienced under the Cage Warriors banner. What do you think is next for him? Would you be reluctant to throw him in for the title right away? Yeah, obviously outstanding performance.
Yeah, he is solid performance. Now, as I think I said on the broadcast on Saturday night, he should have been sleeping. And the night before he was fighting, close to midnight, he was texting me after the show, telling me he wants the welterweight belt, and then he wants to step up and fight Matthias Fredericks for the middleweight belt. And my reply to him was, go to fucking sleep. You know, he's messaging me after the show. I mean, he should be sleeping, relaxing, but you know, he's wanted that belt since his third fight. And I had this conversation with Chris Fields after the show, and it's like, when you take that belt and when you decide to go for that belt, if you win it, that's it. You're done now. your development time's finished. You know, you are classed as the elite of Europe with that belt. You know, there's no more, I need to work on this. There's no more, I need to work on that. That's it. You're there. You know, you're fighting whoever comes your way now. And I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to putting him in for a belt because I do believe he's ready. But from a development point of view and protecting future talent that could be around a hell of a lot longer by not rushing them, I'm also in favor of a step up in competition towards that belt. So again, that's another conversation I'll have with Ian. Ian Dean, not Ian Garry, because there's no point having a conversation with Ian Garry. It's a conversation I'll be having with Ian Dean. We'll be talking about. And yeah, you know, I like to put guys into the right fights with Ian Dean, at the right time. And if you destroy their development time, then they're going to just hit that revolving door where that career may not be as long as it could have been, or they may not be as big and great as they could have been if they had just that little bit more time developing. So, and that's what we're about. You know, we've been doing it for 10 years, and I don't think we're getting it too wrong.
How excited about Ian are you, Graham? Like, you've seen some of the best fighters in the world cross your table before going to the UFC. He's a guy that in Ireland people are, you know, it's very rare that you see people as excited about a kid like this as people are with Ian. What are your excitement levels? Because you're a very excitable man, as we all know.
Yeah. I think he goes all the way, man. I honestly believe, you know, he's got all the attributes. He's a tall guy, you know, he's got the physique, he's got the attitude. He goes in there to win. I think by the end of next year, he's going to be in a very, very good position in his career. And, you know, I think the more time he has to develop on that, the better. Now, here's where you get to see the real side of me and promoting and looking after Cage Warriors for so long. If the world was in a normal place and there was tickets involved in arenas, any organization or head of an organization would want to hold on to Ian Garry and keep him there as long as they could, so they could sell tickets from him. Okay? We're not making money. We're not selling tickets. We're probably not going to make any money on tickets in an organizational capacity with Cage Warriors for some time. But yeah, I still want to develop him. You know, it goes to show we're more about developing the guys and we care for them rather than using them as a ticket seller. You know, because if there are guys that they're only good for selling tickets, we're still promoting. We're still trying to get them to where they need to get. This is a fighting organization run by fighting mind attitudes. It's not you got to sell tickets to do things here. We're looking after the guys and we want to hold them and develop them rather than just rush them to get them off our hands. So I think from a development side, Ian could benefit from a couple more development fights. But like I said, I'm also open to a conversation about the belt too, because I believe he is ready. But he loses his development time if he takes that belt. It's gone. You know, you're not there.
Yeah, it's a complex situation. Absolutely. And look,
yeah,
I love the fact.
Parts. Like this, well, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to dealing with these young guys' careers.
Another one, obviously, and I love the fact that the Irish have come back. You told me this for a long time that you were going to do this, Graham, and I think we saw you plant the seed for this in Cork when you came back for your own homecoming. But what we're seeing now is this huge Irish interest again. When Cage Warriors comes on, it's like the whole country's more geared towards that than even the UFC. But one thing, of course, spirited fans as they are, the Paul Hughes decision was something that didn't sit well with a lot of people. Personally, I had it score for Paul. I understand that the second and third round were very close. You know, can you understand their frustrations? How did you see the fight yourself when you were watching it?
I had him 1-1, and when it got to the third, I I just put my hands in the air. I didn't know what the fuck, which way to look, what to do. I mean, how could anybody score that fight? You know, it was that close. I said to Paul afterwards, I said, anybody could have got the nod in that fight. You or Vucenic. Vucenic said it himself. Anyone could have got the nod in that fight. I mean, that last minute, 90 seconds of scrambling they had in the last round, you know, those two were fresh as daisies at the end of that fight. You know, they could have probably done another 2 rounds there. You're going to get fans on Paul's side who are screaming robbery, he should have won. And if it was the other way, you get Vucenic fans screaming robbery, he should have won. You know, somebody had to win. I would have loved to have seen a draw there in some way, shape or form. You know, I don't believe anyone should have lost that fight. It was probably one of the most spectacular, closest fights we've had on Cage Warriors that I can remember. And unfortunately, you know, Paul picked up the loss. The judges gave the nod to Vucenic, but look at this. You know, there's 3 judges there who get paid to do this on a weekly basis when they're doing shows. That's their job. They get paid to judge. So if you leave it in the judges' hands, that's what they're going to do. There's nothing you can do about that.
Would you like to run that one back, Graham, or do you think that Vucenic goes on to fight Charriere now for the title? What do you feel is the best way to go about that? And I know you probably haven't spoke to Ian about it yet. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, we had that conversation. Yeah, I don't know. I think, I'm not sure about running it back. Probably makes sense to run it back, but we also said it was a number 1 contender spot. So it's something that we need to look at. I think it could be a case of just moving forward. Paul comes back, has won, picks up a win, and then he's back into that number 1 based on that fight. That performance was pretty deserving of, okay, he has picked up the loss, but as far as we're concerned, we've still got 2 number 1 contenders, not 1. And Vucenic gets the number 1 contender spot because he's got the green light in his record, but Hughes is also there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so we've come out of that fight with 2 winners. We've come out of that fight with 2 number 1 contenders, but unfortunately on paper, one has the green light and one has the red light.
What a fight!
Yes, it was an incredible fight.
Unreal,
look, I think it's great that you have that kind of, you know, there's a few contenders at featherweight now for Morgan Charriere, who we'll get onto later on, who stole a lot of headlines that night. Got to ask you about Jack Grant, though, Graham. I wasn't aware, and Joy Herbert told us this in an interview, I wasn't aware that he turned down the opportunity to sign for the UFC to fight for the Cage Warriors lightweight title against Joy Herbert. That's what Joy told us. I don't know if that's true or false. Your face is telling me it is false. But he goes on now and he fights again for the Cage Warriors title, and he comes up short again against Hadley. No, I'm not taking anything away from Hadley. I thought he fought brilliantly. I thought he was a clear winner, to be honest. I didn't think it was in my head. I thought he won it. But are you surprised by this with Jack? Because I thought he was the most terrifying man at 155 outside of the UFC for a long, long time. Is this a testament to Ian Dean and your matchmaking, or do you think it is the pressure of just having that spotlight on you, of knowing that the UFC could come in and get you at any time, and every fight is huge then all of a sudden when those eyes are on you? Yeah,
I had Jack Grant as being the champion after this trilogy series. You know, I didn't think Aggie would beat him, to be honest. I thought it was a very 50-50 fight, but I honestly thought that Jack's striking might have won him the fight. You know, and I said this on the broadcast Saturday night as well, is you had 2 of the best 155-pound grapplers going at each other in a kickboxing match. And that's a testament to their skills, that they both knew how dangerous each other were on the floor, that they didn't bother going there. And they thought they'd bang it out. Jack, I thought, would use his reach, his outside style of getting in, and it would be his advantage, and he'd probably eventually pick up the win. But Aggie was a phenomenal opponent and pulled the win out. Like you, Pete, I thought Jack was the most feared 155er in our division and in Europe, and that belt would have been his. But you know, the lights came on, and he picked up the loss. Aggie took the belt. Heartbroken for Jack. You know, he's been there twice, but you know, maybe the third time's a charm. I spoke to Jack afterwards. I gave him a big fucking hug, man, and I just said, dude, you know, don't let any demons sink into your head. You know, you're at the elite level of this division in Europe, not Cage Warriors, in Europe. You know, come back, get a win, and the belt is there for you next year. And I know the UFC like Jack. They want Jack, you know. So he just needs to get that win, strap that belt, and I think he'd go. So he's given me his word. He's not going to let the demons sink in. He's going to be back in the gym this week, a couple of days, and he's going to be ready to go. So we'll have Jack back in the trilogy in March.
Right, let's get on to the man, Morgan Charriere. Have you ever had a fighter that gets the same amount of traction as this guy? Like, this is when you guys tag me in these posts sometimes, like, I'm so overwhelmed I have to turn off my phone because it's just like bing, 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 bing. I think his knockout the other night had, like, I think it had 10,000 engagements in about 10 minutes. It was insane. And look, there's people from all over the world text me about this guy. Media members in the US are going, what in the name of God is this? Who is this last pirate? I had all the biggest journalists in the world text me about this guy on Saturday night. He is an anomaly, right? Like, this isn't just me getting over enthusiastic. We haven't seen this kind of traction before with a Cage Warriors fighter, right?
No, he's big, man. He's big. I believe he probably took fights earlier on that were just wrong fights, had some silly decisions. But I think he's at a place now where smart fights, he's developed as a fighter. Ignore the record. I think he's 16-7 now. I think he was 15-7. I think before the weekend. 16-7 now. He's going to give and hold on. I think he's going to hold on to that belt, and he's going to give a lot of guys a lot of problems in a 5-round fight. I mean, he almost beat Soren back when we brought him in to fight Soren back in Denmark. You know, he almost took Soren back out. He was very close to finishing that fight. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Morgan over the next year. But having had a chat with his manager and Morgan briefly, very brief chat with Morgan, but more so with his manager. You know, they want to develop. They want to make their development solid before they go to the UFC. So I think we'll see 1 or 2 fights with Morgan. We can make them happen, maybe in Paris.
As PT said there.
Hang on. Paris. So this could be one of your one nights. As you said earlier, the trilogy, I guess it has to really happen in the UK, right? So a Parisian event in 2021 with Morgan Charriere at the top of the card, maybe Mehdi Ben Lakhdar on in the co-main event. That's incredible if you guys can pull that off. Do you think that would happen in 2021?
Did you say if?
Oh.
You know my reaction when I hear if, PT. There's a red flag to a bull there, man. Red flag to a bull there, same with my friend.
He's not going to tell us anymore, PT, is he?
Summer, something like this? Could it be in the summer? Like, do you have any kind of date in mind, any quarter in mind for a possible
we can't let Morgan sitting around till the summer. He'll get bored.
Oh. St. Patrick's Day in Paris, is it? One of them?
Oh my God.
Graham, like
PT
mentioned the traction there, and I think it's up at like 2 million that finish on UFC Fight Pass when they cut the clip.
Wow.
Like, that's the kind of thing the UFC go after, and when they see the name, they see the traction. Like, off the bat, you'd sort of think immediately, as PT said there, everyone was talking about Morgan on Saturday night. He's one of the guys that you're probably going to struggle to hold on to. They're going to come in and try and make him an offer. Is that what you're anticipating now with Morgan? Even before that, because I know they've talked about the culls. We'll get to that in a moment, the guys that are going to be cut from the UFC in 2021, but they're the guys they traditionally go for, guys that can make that, you know, sort of world level traction.
Yeah, I think from my understanding and conversations to date, I think Morgan wants to develop. He's a clever kid, and he's been guided well by Guillaume. So I believe they want to develop. I believe they want to have one or two more, providing they stay on that path, and that's what they want to do. Then we'll have some interesting events coming up. You never know. The UFC might think we want this, and it'll be up to Morgan and Guillaume to decide if they want that. We won't stand in the way, obviously. But I think Morgan has made those mistakes. Like I said, when you look at his record, he's probably made those mistakes earlier on and feels he wants to be fully primed and ready when he does go to the UFC. So I think maybe we'll have one or two more.
Definitely. St. Patrick's Day,
and
Paris.
Niall said it there. Yeah, said it there about the cold situation in the UFC, 60 to 80 fighters. Now, I do feel as though they are looking at fighters who command big paydays, guys like even after Saturday's fights, maybe Junior Dos Santos and Jacare could be in some significant trouble there. But is that a worrying thing for you to hear as a manager, Graham, when the UFC are cutting so many bodies, and even as a promoter, then a guy who kind of paves the way for people to the UFC? Do you feel as though that could maybe, slow down the process as such with so many bodies leaving the UFC?
It's an interesting time, and I think when all this started off, it was a case of a lot of us believed not many people were going to get signed to the UFC because everybody would be totally recovered and anyone who was injured would be back fully rehabbed and ready to go looking for fights. And their roster was blown up purely because of that and because of the fact that trying to get guys to go training and compete is even as hard, for the simple reason there's such a divided opinion on COVID-19 and training. You've got, just take my gyms, for example. There's 4 gyms there. And those 4 gyms, there were guys in that gym pre-COVID who I had to kick out of the gym. Those guys, I can't get back into the gym now. They want nothing to do with this until everyone's vaccinated and everything is back to normal. So you probably have a massive roster, but half that roster probably refuse to train because they may have a vulnerable member of the family at the house, so they can't afford to take that chance to go on roll with a whole bunch of people and train with people. So in one sense, your roster goes through the roof, and in the other sense, half of them are already available. So it's hard to put an exact answer on that question. I think it's a case of time will tell. But I do know that the biggest issue for the European guys at the moment is P visas. Europeans need P visas to be able to get to the States to compete because that's where the majority of these events are going to happen at the Apex. And getting these P visas is pretty hard. I'm dealing with some P visa applications for some guys at the moment, and they're coming back. They're coming back with earliest dates, August, October next year, to get a P visa. So if you don't have a P visa and you're on the European roster, it's a tough one. So we're using all sorts of connections and contacts to get these visa applications expedited, so we can get them in quicker to get these visa interviews, to get the P visa into their passport. And that happened with Jack. Jack. Yeah. Jack Grant. It happened with Jack Grant. Almost happened with Reese McKee. Reese McKee got his visa the Monday of fight week, and his flights were changed the Monday of fight week to fly Tuesday. So that's the kind of craziness that we're dealing with behind the scenes to actually get these guys on a plane, to get them to Vegas. And then, my heart goes out to the matchmakers of the UFC too, because they're putting fights together. And then Visas is cancelling those fights last minute, and they're scrambling, trying to keep a card together, So everyone's in a tough boat, all rowing the same way with the same problems, regardless of the size of the organization. We had the same issues. Having the government approval on our side and dealing with European fighters is a little bit easier for us, but with the US, no P visa, no fight.
And Graham,
is it anything to do with Trump, Dana? Graham, is it anything to do with because it felt like the UFC and Trump were, there was a great relationship there. We heard that the likes of McGregor and Till, there was kind of government bodies getting involved to get them their visa opportunities. Am I going crazy thinking that the change of president might have something to do with this visa situation?
No, this has been going on since early October, so long before that. So it's a simple case of where they've got to go to get their interviews, to get the visas. Like, just to give you an example, Jack Shore had a visa appointment 9:30 in London. Friend got in the car, friend drove him up, turned up at 9:30 at the embassy. The door was open, and 10 minutes later they shut the door and said, sorry, we're closed.
Oh, Jesus.
After getting all the way to London to do that. So then we went back to get him rebooked in, and they came back and said the earliest appointment is next year, and it's like, that's not going to work. So we got his visa expedited. He then got an appointment the following week, which was a case of then him coming back up again, and this time he got in, and he got in for the interview and got the visa approved and got his passport 3 days later. But by that point, you know, it was too late to even make the fight. So and then a lot of people don't know this. Like, you get guys screaming for fights, and it's like, you have a P visa in your passport, and it's like, no, well then, you know, we've got to just sit tight and work on the visa first. That visa in these guys' passports right now is the most important thing in a fight date. And I know that's and I say that to some of my guys, that's a tough thing to hear, but it's, with the way the world is, you need that P visa to develop and move forward with your career, because no P visa is going to be pretty hard to get a fight.
Yeah, bloody hell, seems to be the case. Graham, have the conversations changed maybe then a little bit? You know, to that extent, you know, if the UFC come looking for one of your guys in Cage Warriors to reach out, make contact, whatever, have they been maybe a little bit less frequent than they normally have been on the on the back of these events?
No, the conversations are solid there. And also, it's pretty public knowledge, I'm setting up Cage Wars in California. So come January, once I've finished the final
San Diego
structure in San Diego, yeah, that's the one. Once I've finished the final structure, I'll be able to give my guys P visas. So I'll be setting up I'll be able to set a structure up so that if I'm bringing my guys in, I'll be having a P visa. So the shop and basket as such will be bigger for the UFC, because all the guys who fight on Cage Warriors will have a P visa from what we're doing. So.
Wow, that's amazing. That's huge.
That's brilliant for the fighters and everything. And do you expect maybe then in that case there might be a knock-on effect where, you know, a guy comes over for a Cage Warriors fight and ultimately, you know, he can even fight in the UFC maybe 2 weeks later, something like that, you know, on short notice. Is that a situation that would let that possible to happen?
If you got a P visa, you can do as you please. Yeah. So,
it's very beneficial then for you. That's amazing.
It's a good thing for the guys. It's another reason why these young guys coming through should be on Cage Warriors, because what we can do for them in terms of having them ready, from documentation to visas to experience to fighting on shows and exposure and the PR machine that we put behind it, you know, there's the full package and the full development path is there. And with me living over there now and setting all these systems up, it just makes it even more of a choice for them to have to get involved with Cage Warriors now.
Savage.
One more, Graham. Only one, I promise. You talked about France being a possibility in 2021. What about Ireland? Could we see a return to Ireland in 2021 if the stars align? I know it's a crazy situation over here at the moment, but if everything was to go your way, would you consider putting on an Irish card in 2021? Because we have so much talent on the Cage Warriors rosters from this neck of the woods. I think it would make a lot of sense if it was possible.
100%. You know, we'll do. We've got right now. There's an unbelievable Irish roster building up. There's almost a full main card there in Irish talent, and close to a full prelim card too. Same for France. We've got a solid main card roster for France, as well as some prelims. Italy is coming. We've almost
Definitely.
We're about 3, maybe 4 good names away from doing a solid card for Italy. And you know, and we have Wales and England is there as well. So between the four, I believe we have the red corner on all four countries that we'll be looking at. We'll start building the US side out. So I think what we'll do, I'm training at a bunch of different gyms myself in San Diego, and I'm speaking with the coaches there. And the idea behind the California side is we're going to put together a San Diego team between those guys, and they're not going to fight each other, but they're going to be a team, and we're going to bring in fighters from other states to fight these guys in San Diego. So we'll build up that team, and then the European guys can fight the San Diego team, and vice versa over the shows. So that's what I'm going to work on playing with over the 2021 timeframe.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That is what a valuable piece of infrastructure that is. That move to the US when you line it up like that. That's amazing. Can't thank you enough, Graham. You've answered absolutely everything we have for you. Always a pleasure. I'm glad you're staying hip with the Skype app. I know it's a new thing. A lot of the kids
lock it down, Graham.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you as always. And congratulations! It was an amazing 3 days.
Brilliant.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Graham.
Glad you enjoyed it, boys. We'll see you in March, I guess.
And in
Have
San
a good
Diego.
Christmas. And come on over. Have a good Christmas, and thank you for your support to the organization this year as well. You guys have been there with solid coverage and giving the fighters the time that they need to develop their brand. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Thanks so much, Graham.
Oh, you're welcome. A pleasure. The pleasure was all ours, Graham.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Graham.
Okay, let's upgrade Skype for 2021, lads. Take care.
Thanks, Graham.
Carl, I'll talk to you, man. All the best.
Hello, guys. If you want to hear more of The Bash, you can subscribe to us on all our wonderful channels on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and all that other shit.
And click the links below. Click the links below, the notification button. It comes straight to your phone if we've any fresh content. And also hit the subscribe button. It does help. You're some plonker.
It's very serious.